Sheila from Invest Puerto Rico. We're so excited to partner with Jetro to share with you a bit more about our island. Puerto Rico is one of the most dynamic places in the Western Hemisphere to do business, and we believe it should be your headquarters for business. My name is Roderick Miller, and I am CEO of Invest Puerto Rico. Invest Puerto Rico is the island's official investment promotion agency. We were established by law in 2017 specifically for the purpose of promoting Puerto Rico as a competitive investment jurisdiction to attract new businesses and capital investment to the island. We aim to be a transformational and results-oriented accelerator of economic development in Puerto Rico. The question, though, is really how do we do this, and why is it that you should have a relationship with us? It's very simple. Invest Puerto Rico was established specifically for the purpose of attracting new investment and for working with companies like yours to find success on the island, with the thinking that we could provide a level of continuity in terms of the approach around promoting the island. We could serve as a liaison between the public and private sector to actually facilitate and accelerate investment. And we do this from everything from identifying sites for potential processes for potential companies, to navigating the incentives process, to even helping companies find talent. And so you should consider Invest Puerto Rico your partner in expanding to the island of Puerto Rico and growing your company. Why Puerto Rico? Well, it's quite simple. Puerto Rico, there's not another market like Puerto Rico in the world. Well, why do you say this, Rod? Well, it's very simple. Our strategic location at the heart of the Caribbean gives us broad access to North America, South America, Africa, and Europe. Direct access to all of these markets. And of course, we're building stronger relationships in Asia, and our Jetro and Japan relationship is a critical part of that. Puerto Rico boasts a population of about 3 million US citizens, but not just a population of 3 million people. It's a bilingual population, largely bilingual population with high levels of fluency in both English and Spanish. The island also boasts a variety of natural assets, including tropical ocean beaches and mountainous rainforests. So the combination of quality of life, well-trained population, and U.S. jurisdiction are really at the core of our value proposition. And we're excited to share more of that value proposition with you. One of the strengths of Puerto Rico is really its pro-business government. Puerto Rico has worked in a very determined fashion over the last 5, 10 years to really ensure that companies have a turnkey process in terms of investing on the island. From improvements in the permitting process to tax reforms, Puerto Rico continues to make significant strides to make sure that it's a place where the ease of doing business is continuously improving, as well as the public investments in infrastructure, digital transformation, and workforce represent opportunities for businesses to actually be more productive, more profitable, and more successful. As I mentioned, Puerto Rico's strategic location is one of its greatest strengths. Located in the heart of Caribbean, Puerto Rico has a broad variety of direct flights throughout the U.S., Latin America, and the Caribbean, as well as Europe. But on top of that, it has access to shipping and air routes to North and South America, and is not only geographically in a location where it continues to be a major driver of opportunity, but it's also got the cultural linkages to North America, South America, and the Caribbean as well. Puerto Rico has 3 international air transshipment hubs, 11 seaports, and 11 airports. All of these are key parts of what allows manufacturers, those exporting services to take advantage of all the benefits that Puerto Rico has to offer. In a nutshell, Puerto Rico has it all. From the pharmaceutical manufacturing and the medical device manufacturing perspective, about half of our economy is actually made up of manufacturing, and most of that is in pharmaceutical and medical devices. So it doesn't really matter what area of pharmaceutical or medical devices a particular company has. Puerto Rico offers a broad variety of opportunities up and down the supply chain to tap into our existing capacity as a market, as well as to take advantage of our existing capacity to further grow your company. From a research and development perspective, Puerto Rico counts with world-class universities and is actually 6th in the world in terms of STEM production. And then Puerto Rico has a transportation and logistics infrastructure that allows not only for it to be a hub for manufacturing, but for it to get its goods around to the rest of the world. And of course, that's bolstered by the recent transshipment waiver that was made by the U.S. government about a year ago, which basically allows goods stopping, deplaning, and replaning in Puerto Rico to avoid additional transfer fees. And all of those are things that are at the crux of who we are. And then last but not least, as we mentioned, Puerto Rico has an environment, a natural environment that has lush beaches as well as mountains as well as rainforests. And of course, that is one of the key realities that's feeding into additional growth that we're seeing in the ag biotech sector. Let's dig a little bit deeper into this conversation around pharmaceutical medical devices. It's a legacy of 60 years of excellence and going strong. Puerto Rico leads the country in terms of exporting in the biopharmaceutical and medical device sector with over $13 billion in investments annually, with over 30 medical device companies, including 15 of the top 20 medical device companies in the world, FDA Class 3 device manufacturers, and 5.5 times more industry experts in medical devices and 8.6 times the number of pharma experts than the national average. So as we know, talent is the number one driver, not only of investment decisions, but ultimately of profitability and productivity for companies across sectors. And Puerto Rico's deep bench in terms of talent, as well as deep bench in terms of companies, really positions Puerto Rico to continue to lead not only the U.S., but the world as a major producer in the pharmaceutical and medical device manufacturing space. And one of the things is that the concentration of biosciences on the island of Puerto Rico is still stronger than anywhere else in the world. You're talking about an island of 35 by 100 square miles that has world-class universities, pharma corridors, ag bio corridors, medical device corridors, and so much more spread across the island. Part of the beauty of Puerto Rico is that the access to the talent, the access to the assets, both knowledge and physical assets, are all within a realistic drive, quite frankly. And so companies that come to Puerto Rico can not only access what they need, but they can easily access what they need from a reach perspective and from a connectivity perspective. This is arguably Puerto Rico's greatest strength, the ability to connect these resources from a talent, asset base, and policy perspective with very little red tape. Again, 7 of the top 10 medical devices companies are in Puerto Rico, and 12 of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies are in Puerto Rico. And what we're seeing right now is that those companies, while they continue to find value in Puerto Rico, many of the smaller and mid-sized companies are now finding the value in Puerto Rico as well. Part of the value, of course, being able to tap into these larger companies, but also the reality that these mid-sized companies can actually be significant players here on the island and access the world from Puerto Rico. In addition to pharmaceutical and bio, we've also got ICT and electronics manufacturing on the island. So we've got world-class IT companies, world-class electronics companies that have come to Puerto Rico because of our manufacturing expertise, because of our talent, and because of, quite frankly, our strategic location. And we continue to work with these companies and would welcome the opportunity to invite others to this market, because we know that the value of Puerto Rico is real, and access not only to the companies that are here, but also universities is a lot of what drives this opportunity. In the last 4 or 5 years, we've had hundreds of new entrepreneurs come to the market, and these entrepreneurs are driven by things. One of the realities of Puerto Rico is that Puerto Rico not only has world-class incentives, which we've not talked much about yet, but we will. Puerto Rico is also in a period of transition, and in this period of transition, the entire island's infrastructure is being rebuilt through federal dollars coming down, billions and billions of dollars coming down to rebuild the infrastructure, from everything from transportation to the electric grid to the school system. On top of that, you've got an entrepreneurial environment that has a variety of players ranging from Parallel 18 to Piloto 151 to SPES and others to Grupo Guayacán. All of these are groups that have popped up with real capacity in the last 5 to 10 years and that are supporting entrepreneurs and growing in Puerto Rico. And these entrepreneurs are coming from around the world. We've got entrepreneurs from India, we've got entrepreneurs from throughout Asia, we've got entrepreneurs from Latin America. And they're coming here because what they see is a market that's hungry for change and a market that's open to innovative people and innovative ideas. And in West Puerto Rico, we want to continue to drive these innovative people, innovative ideas, and innovative companies here, because we know that Puerto Rico offers access to the rest of the world. world-class talent, world-class incentives, and a market that's actually willing to go the extra mile in order to help companies be successful. We don't see companies as merely opportunities to bring new jobs and investment to the island, but we see companies as our partner in the long-term economic growth, sustainability, and viability of Puerto Rico. And so the way that Puerto Rico and Invest Puerto Rico works with companies is in that spirit of partnership. And that's why so many entrepreneurs find Puerto Rico as a great place to grow. We've got a world-class connectivity. You know, the Internet of Things really has arrived to Puerto Rico. We boast two zero-G networks by Sigfox and Everynet. Both of those networks provide customer access to global networks on IoT sensors, use cases, and expertise. But in addition to those things, we also have 5G, and we're on the cutting edge of the 5G conversation with one of only 4 5G labs around the United States. So whether it's 0G or 5G, Puerto Rico has the entire spectrum. And that's a significant part of the value of what we have to offer. Our 5G wireless connectivity is widely available through at least 6 major providers. Puerto Rico has the highest levels of broadband connectivity, which is carried to the island by submarine cables. And in connectivity, we understand that it's key to our long-term sustainability, growth, and opportunities for companies. So there continues to be a focus on increasing it further, both in terms of capacity as well as in terms of access. We know that companies grow, and a big piece of their growth is because they've got the support they need. And so with strong support locally, Puerto Rican companies have grown to meet market demands across the US and Latin America. And here are a few examples of some of the companies that have experienced runaway growth in Puerto Rico. Wovenware is a company that we often talk about, which is an exciting company in the AI space that's a Puerto Rican-led company. So you've got companies like Wovenware that are doing great work here that are homegrown, companies like Evertech that are doing great work that are homegrown. But then you've got world-class, well-known global brands such as Microsoft that are also growing here on the island. And all of these companies are here for the same reason. They're here because we've got a workforce that actually produces, we've got a workforce that's innovative, and then we've got an infrastructure that supports pushing goods and services around the globe. Aerospace continues to be a strong opportunity for the island as well. We've got multiple airports within the 35 by 100 square miles that Puerto Rico is. And we've also got great training for the aerospace industry, whether it's the Polytechnic University, the Interamericana University, or a University of Puerto Rico, MIOS. And so all of these institutions, in concert with the other assets that we have on the island, are continuing to push the aerospace sector forward. And we believe that aerospace will continue to be a strong opportunity for the island, not just because of the assets that we have, but also because of our strategic location and our relationship as part of the United States. Aguadilla is really the center of the aerospace cluster in Puerto Rico. The former Ramey Air Force Base, now Rafael Hernandez Aguadilla Airport, has a runway built to a length of over 11,000 feet, and it's the longest in the Caribbean. We have great world-class companies out there like Lufthansa Technique, Honeywell, Infotech, and Infosys, and there are numerous others as well. We're continuing to develop this sector, and we're looking for companies that really want to not only just recognize Puerto Rico as a center of productivity and manufacturing, but that want to tap into the other companies that are here on the island as resources to help them grow and to help them expand and get greater market access. Puerto Rico has a highly skilled workforce, and this is our greatest asset. The highly skilled workforce is our greatest asset, and that's really driven by these world-class colleges and universities. The University of Puerto Rico, MIOS, is #1 in the country in graduating Hispanic engineers, is #1 in graduating chemical engineers, is #2 in graduating women engineers. And the Polytechnic University is 16th among the 20 top civil engineering schools in the US, 23rd in electrical engineering degrees awarded, and 27 in computer engineering degrees awarded. What am I saying? Well, in a nutshell, when you're talking about world-class STEM talent, there's not a better place than Puerto Rico. And that's because the island has long understood the importance of science, technology, engineering, and math to the sustainability of just life itself, but also as a driver of productivity, profitability, and innovation for companies. And what's great about these universities is not only that they're producing talent, but they're doing it in a fashion where the private sector is able to tap into it and influence not only curriculum development, but also research partnerships. And that could be the greatest strength of the island. We encourage you, as you look at expanding to Puerto Rico, not only to reach out to Invest Puerto Rico, but to understand, how you can tap into our people power. We will work hand in hand with you to figure out how you can partner with universities across the island. Whatever you need, the universities in Puerto Rico have it. And I think this graphic is illustrative of the breadth and the depth of the university ecosystem. Puerto Rico performs. What does this performance look like? Well, there are three things that are at the crux of why Puerto Rico performs. Number one, a company gets to keep more of the money that it makes. Our corporate income tax rate of 4% and our federal corporate income tax rate of 0% is much less than any of our competitors. So right off the bat, if the market stays the same, one makes more money in Puerto Rico because they get to keep more of their money. Part number two, our talent. Puerto Rico has a very robust talent pool, with being the sixth largest concentration of STEM graduates in the world. And despite this high concentration of STEM graduates and the high number of companies that we have, Puerto Rico's cost for employees is significantly less versus competitor markets. So you get to keep more of your money, pay less for high quality talent, and then ultimately produce at a much higher and more innovative rate. The $13.2 billion in exports annually that Puerto Rico does greatly dwarfs the 6.98 billion of our nearest competitor, Indiana. And the other markets, as you can see, fall grossly shy of Puerto Rico. I think what this says is that the other manufacturers are here because they know something about not only how to make money, but they're also seeing something about Puerto Rico being the place that allows them to make money. And so we invite you to join the performance of the other companies in the manufacturing space that have seen Puerto Rico as a tremendous opportunity. All of that's great. And then it's only bolstered by the reality that we have opportunity zones. Opportunity zones, of course, are a program established by the U.S. Congress in 2017 to encourage long-term investments in low-income urban and rural communities nationwide. More than 95% of Puerto Rico is an opportunity zone. This allows for there to be significant private sector investment, but not have the capital gains burdens if the asset is sold or within a 10-year period. That's a very significant opportunity for companies that envision significant growth and envision significant capital investments or even potentially dilution in the next 5 to 10 years. Puerto Rico is a great place to make this investment, and this is a tremendous benefit to companies. Oftentimes, leading Invest Puerto Rico, the island's investment promotion agency, we're asked about the recovery and resilience of the island. One of the things is when the storms Maria and Irma happened in 2017, the entire world saw some of the challenges related to infrastructure, but many don't know the rest of that story. And that's a great story. The rest of that story is that, on average, when there are issues of natural disasters, over 40% of businesses tend to close in a local market. In the case of Puerto Rico, only 10% of those businesses closed. And when I talk to manufacturers, most of them tell me that their facilities were only down for a day or two because they had built the facilities with an understanding of the potential risk that the island has because of its location and storms. That said, those events also created an opportunity to attract significant private investment and significant public investment. Almost $62 billion of federal funds have been allocated for Puerto Rico's recovery. In addition to those 62 for general recovery and infrastructure, $13 billion has been obligated by FEMA for overhauling the electric grid as well as repairing schools and other education centers. Historically, Puerto Rico has been known for its strong spirit and ability to rise from these adversities. The passing of the storms put our resiliency to the test, but we are now fast tracking to build back stronger and better. And I think this represents a tremendous opportunity for companies that want to be aggressive and be a part of the rebuilding and advancement of a great island. There are a lot of success stories. The companies below are just a few. And what you'll see is that they represent diverse sectors. So, for example, Lufthansa Technik is probably a household name, a German company in the aerospace sector that's come to Puerto Rico and continues to grow in Puerto Rico, largely because of the access to world-class talent and the relationship that it has with the University of Puerto Rico, MIOS. On the flip side, we've got companies like Cytoimmune Therapeutics and Biosimilar Solutions, which are both companies in the biospace doing gene cell therapies. And these cutting edge companies are coming to Puerto Rico because of the access to talent and because of Puerto Rico's rich history in the biopharmaceutical sector. And of course, I would be incredibly remiss if I didn't mention Terumo, which is a Japanese medical device manufacturer, which was established in 2017 and has more than 300 employees in Caguas. We were excited to have them along with many other large international corporations, but quite frankly, the Japanese opportunity in Puerto Rico is pretty tremendous. And I think you should talk to Terumo about their experience, because what you'll find is that they will say that Puerto Rico has been a great market for them. And I think it'll be a great market for other Japanese companies. So hopefully you can join these companies and others in finding the value of why Puerto Rico is a great market for investment. And ultimately, in closing, what I'll say is that Puerto Rico has some of the best incentives of anywhere I've ever seen. And these incentives range from tax benefits to direct support and being able to recruit hard to recruit employees. And Best Puerto Rico is excited to be your partner and to work with you on growing your company in Puerto Rico. Please reach out to us directly to further the conversation. And we're excited about increasing Japanese investment in Puerto Rico and strengthening the relationship with Japan for many years to come. At this time, I'd love to pass it on to Patrick Foley, the CEO of Lufthansa Technik. Lufthansa is one of the many companies that's found value in Puerto Rico and that continues to grow here on the island. Take it away, Patrick.
My name is Pat Foley. I'm the Chief Executive of Lufthansa Technik, Puerto Rico. We are a maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility where we specialize in what's known as heavy maintenance or base maintenance for aircraft, specifically narrow-body aircraft, and even more precisely today, it's on the A320 family aircraft. Before Lufthansa Technik came to Puerto Rico, there was no other aircraft heavy maintenance being performed on the island of Puerto Rico. So when we established the company, not only did we establish a new company and create 400 new positions, but I think we've also created a new asset to the economy of Puerto Rico. Look, first of all, the fact that its location is really nestled perfectly for what we do between both North and South America. So I think first and foremost, it was the right location to be able to access both markets. I think the fact that it was a US territory also made it more straightforward, I guess, for us to be able to gain our US FAA approvals. So that was an advantage that the territory had over perhaps some other locations we were exploring at the time. The fact that there was an available, hardworking workforce, a loyal workforce, and a bilingual workforce, being able to with both English and Spanish being very, very strong on the island itself. And maybe finally, the local government and the federal government support was very, very important. And in particular, I think the Puerto Rican government's strategy to not just try to attract Lufthansa to the island, but actually to try and really develop the aerospace sector on the island was important. And one of the key decisions, that I would say a cornerstone decision in Lufthansa finally making the decision to locate in Puerto Rico, came with the Puerto Rican government's decision to establish the Aeronautical and Aerospace Institute of Puerto Rico, here less than 1 mile from our facility. If I talk about our business, it's essentially a majority of our costs are labor costs. So the incentives were a very essential part of of enabling us also to choose Puerto Rico. I think a business will never make a decision to choose a location only because of incentives and tax elements. But I think in the case of Puerto Rico, our experience would have been very, we would view them very, very favorably. And where there were other, as I said, other costs, labor cost disadvantages, the incentives certainly helped to offset or partially offset some of those challenges. I think the value question is a really, really interesting one. And I think the value that we are bringing to Lufthansa Technik is to be essentially the lighthouse for the establishment of our base maintenance product. Or what we do is seen today by customers in North and South America. I think there's a wonderful opportunity for us as a company. I think it's a wonderful opportunity for us as an island in Puerto Rico to really be that lighthouse and show what it is that we can do, Lufthansa Technik, and what Puerto Rico can do.